Pause for a moment. Slow yourself down, take a deep breath, and listen carefully in complete silence. Because the reason you are here at this exact moment may not be random. There are no accidents in the way certain messages reach us precisely when we need them most. The universe does not create mistakes, and even the systems around us that appear completely mechanical can respond to the energetic patterns created by your strongest intentions, emotions, and desires. While you have continued questioning everything within your mind, wondering whether this person still thinks about you, wondering if something remains unfinished between the two of you, or fearing that the connection has been permanently damaged, something meaningful may have already shifted beneath the surface. A powerful transformation has taken place, but it did not happen through a conversation you heard, a message suddenly appearing on your screen, or an obvious physical sign placed directly before you. Instead, it happened through a quiet internal decision made somewhere beyond what your eyes are able to see. There was a moment when something changed inside this person, a private realization, a silent understanding, a choice that formed in a place where nobody else could witness it. Your spirit needs to recognize this invisible movement because it may carry meaning for the direction your journey is preparing to take. If something within you feels that this message is reaching you personally, leave a like so this message can reach someone else who may also need this reminder. For many days, perhaps even for several weeks, you may have felt a strange pressure within your chest, a sensation of waiting for something you cannot fully explain. A quiet concern that remains with you even when you attempt to focus your attention on other things. You may feel as though you are waiting for an answer, a sign, or some kind of communication that never seems to arrive, leaving the entire situation feeling unfinished and uncertain. But this sensation within your body, the heaviness in your heart, the feeling in your throat, and those unexpected moments when you wake in the middle of the night may not be meaningless thoughts created entirely by your imagination. They can feel like signs that something within your emotional and spiritual awareness has noticed a change before your physical reality has had the opportunity to reveal it. The person who continues appearing in your thoughts, the person whose memory returns during ordinary moments of your day, may no longer be standing in the same place of confusion and hesitation. They may no longer be trapped in that space where every possibility exists, but no real decision has been made. Something within them has started moving. Something has begun to shift. Recently, perhaps during a quiet night when they could not distract themselves, or during a moment of complete solitude when they were forced to sit with their own thoughts, they may have finally looked deeper into their feelings. They examined what they truly wanted, what they were afraid of, and what direction they genuinely wanted their life to move toward. This decision did not necessarily come from a temporary emotion, fear of being alone, or a simple desire for comfort. It came from something much deeper, something connected to a truth they could no longer completely ignore. Some connections carry a weight that cannot easily be erased. Some bonds continue asking for attention, regardless of how much distance is placed between two people. Souls that are meant to cross paths cannot avoid their lessons forever. People can create distance. They can choose silence. They can build emotional walls. They can behave as though they feel nothing at all. They can pretend that separation has completely removed the connection. But eventually, every person reaches a point where the emotions they have buried become too powerful to ignore. There comes a moment when the pressure created by unspoken feelings becomes greater than the fear of facing the truth. This may be the invisible force you are sensing right now. This restless feeling, this unusual awareness, and this constant reminder of them may exist because your energy still feels connected with theirs in a way that goes beyond physical circumstances. Distance does not always destroy a meaningful connection. Time apart does not necessarily mean the end. Silence does not automatically mean that someone has forgotten. Even painful words, misunderstandings, and periods of separation cannot always remove a bond that has touched something deeper within two people. When a decision is formed from the deepest part of someone's being, the other person may sometimes sense that change without needing obvious logical evidence. This is why their voice suddenly enters your mind during ordinary activities. This is why memories appear while you are working, relaxing, or doing something completely unrelated. This is why their image may appear in your dreams, even after you have tried to move your attention somewhere else. This experience does not automatically mean obsession, and it does not necessarily prove that you are incapable of moving forward. It may represent a powerful emotional connection that still carries meaning for you. Something within you recognizes that emotional communication between two people can continue to feel present even when there is no physical conversation taking place. Comment below if you feel that this person has already reached a decision within themselves, even though they have not yet revealed it openly. Many people misunderstand deep connections because they believe that true love, destiny, or spiritual bonds should always feel easy, peaceful, and effortless, similar to the perfect stories we watch in movies. But the reality of profound emotional connections can be very different. Real connections challenge us. They disturb old patterns. They bring uncomfortable emotions toward the surface. They expose hidden wounds that we would rather continue ignoring. They force people to look honestly at themselves and question the choices they have been making. While there has been distance between you and this person, they may have been placed in a position where they had to face their own reflection. Without the usual distractions, without the ability to hide behind familiar behaviors, they had to ask themselves difficult questions. Were they going to continue running away from what they genuinely felt? Were they going to keep avoiding the reality of the connection? Or would they finally find the courage to accept what their heart had been trying to show them? Even though you may not see immediate changes in the outside world, a decision can already exist internally. The unseen world often seems to move before the physical world follows. What has been accepted within the heart eventually searches for a way to express itself in reality. The physical circumstances surrounding you may appear unchanged right now, but that does not mean that nothing is happening. Sometimes the greatest shifts begin quietly, away from public attention, before they eventually become visible to everyone. Nothing can permanently block what is genuinely aligned with a person's deepest intentions. When inner desire and the right timing come together, outer circumstances can begin reflecting what has already been created within. This message is not here to create false expectations or keep you trapped in endless waiting. It is here to help you understand that some periods of separation are not necessarily endings. Sometimes they are preparation. Sometimes they are seasons in which both people are being changed, healed, and guided toward a clearer understanding. This silence is not necessarily abandonment. It can be a period of inner organization, a necessary space where this person needed time to understand the depth of what they feel and decide whether they were truly ready to face it. When you stop allowing fear to control your thoughts and begin listening to your deeper awareness, you start recognizing that your emotions and intuition can sometimes reveal things your logical mind cannot immediately understand. The unusual combination of peace and anticipation you feel may be your inner self recognizing something before your circumstances have fully revealed it. That strange calm, mixed with expectation, can appear when something within you believes that a change is approaching. When tears unexpectedly come to your eyes, when the heaviness inside your chest begins to fade, or when an old emotional wound starts feeling lighter, it can represent a process of healing taking place within you. You are not necessarily waiting for someone who is completely lost and uncertain. You may be experiencing a chapter of transformation where everything is being rearranged so that whatever is meant to happen can unfold in the way it needs to. This individual separation was not necessarily the result of a sudden decision or a random thought that appeared in one moment. Instead, It may have been the outcome of a long, silent, and often lonely internal struggle between what their heart was truly recognizing and what their conditioned mind had convinced them they needed to do in order to move forward. For a long time, they tried to convince themselves through logical explanations that they could continue living their life without looking back. They kept their mind occupied with endless responsibilities, temporary distractions, meaningless activities, and even connections with other people, hoping that these things would erase what they still carried deep inside. But nothing was able to completely remove the constant awareness that something remained unfinished between you. It was like a door that had been left slightly open, one they could never completely close, regardless of how much effort they made to walk away. Comment connected if you believe your souls remain deeply connected even through the silence. A person can attempt to ignore a genuine connection or bury it beneath noise, distractions, and endless activity. But something that feels real cannot simply disappear. Every unsuccessful attempt to escape only brings this individual closer to the unavoidable moment when they must finally make a choice. Slowly, they began to feel the heavy pressure of living in a way that no longer matched who they truly were. They started to understand that the emptiness they carried had been created by their own inner resistance toward what their heart already knew about you. Rejecting this connection demanded far too much from their emotional energy. Little by little, it took away their peace, their balance, and their ability to maintain the false reality they had built for themselves. Eventually, continuing to pretend that nothing meaningful existed between you became impossible. If there were nights when you blamed yourself, wondering whether you gave too much love, showed too much care, or opened your heart more deeply than you should have, you need to release that burden of guilt. Their distance was not caused by the amount of love you offered. It happened because, at that particular time, they were not emotionally prepared to handle the intensity and depth of what they were experiencing with you. This individual had to confront deeply rooted fears within themselves. They struggled with the fear of losing control over the life they had carefully created. They faced the fear of becoming emotionally exposed, along with the fear of reopening painful chapters from their past that they never wanted to experience again. They created distance not because they felt nothing, but because they felt something so powerful that it became overwhelming for someone who was unfamiliar with facing emotions at such a deep level. As time continued to pass, the things surrounding them began losing the excitement they once had. The distractions that previously helped them avoid their feelings no longer worked in the same way. They began to realize that creating distance, delaying honesty, and avoiding the truth only increased their regret and created an even stronger sense of longing. They started seeing that what happened between you was not simply an ordinary encounter. It was a meaningful meeting that created a clear turning point in their personal journey. It became the moment that encouraged them to stop fighting against their own inner voice and accept a connection that did not fit ordinary patterns. Type yes if you want me to reveal more signs that their decision is becoming real. You remain a powerful influence behind this transformation. And this may be why you have recently experienced a strange sense of emotional tiredness within yourself. You are beginning to release the intense need to control exactly how everything will happen or when the outcome will finally appear. This feeling is not weakness, failure, or sadness. It represents a deeper stage of growth where you are learning to trust the connection and allow the energy between you to move naturally. Do not expect everything to change instantly because the path of meaningful love is rarely a completely straight road without challenges, adjustments, or periods of silence. Sometimes those quiet moments are necessary because they give both people the space to heal, understand themselves, and complete the inner changes required before moving forward. The greatest difference now is that the uncertainty has begun to disappear. When the heart truly chooses something, that inner force naturally begins moving toward honesty, much like a river that eventually finds its way toward the ocean. Even while they manage their everyday responsibilities and close old situations they previously did not have the courage to finish, they may still be gathering the strength required to act upon what they have already accepted inside, but they are no longer completely lost between confusion and avoidance. They are no longer running without understanding the reason behind their actions. They are beginning to recognize the truth of their emotions and allowing that awareness to transform their entire perspective. Meaningful love often arrives after difficult lessons because those experiences help both individuals grow during periods of separation and silence. These challenges guide both sides toward a more mature, conscious, and authentic version of themselves. You have also changed throughout this journey. You have learned to trust your intuition, create healthier boundaries, and recognize the incredible value you possess simply by being who you are. Nothing you experienced was meaningless. Every tear, every uncertain moment, and every night spent questioning the situation was part of a larger process of personal transformation. Now that process is entering a new phase where their inner realization begins to align with your own growth. You must develop the ability to recognize movement in the unseen before it becomes visible in the physical world. Understand that their original withdrawal was never truly about your worth or your actions. It was connected to their own hidden struggles and the parts of themselves they had not yet learned to face. You caused yourself unnecessary pain by believing you were not enough or that their feelings had simply disappeared. But the deeper truth is that this individual stepped away because being close to you made it impossible for them to continue hiding from themselves. This connects with what psychology and thinkers such as Carl Jung describe as the shadow, the hidden place within us where fears, insecurities, unresolved emotions, and rejected parts of ourselves are stored because we are afraid to reveal them to the world. Before they met you, this individual kept that hidden side protected behind a carefully constructed image. They moved through everyday life while avoiding the deeper wounds and emotions they carried beneath the surface. But your presence became like a powerful light entering a dark room. It created a strong reflection that allowed them to see themselves more clearly than they had ever seen themselves before. You became a mirror through which they could no longer avoid the truth of who they were. When they looked at you, they did not only see your beauty, your kindness, or the love you offered. They also saw the unresolved pieces of their own life reflected back at them. Your ability to love deeply revealed their fear of vulnerability. Your honesty exposed the stories they had created to protect themselves. Your courage to embrace your emotions highlighted the walls they had built around their own heart. It is important that you truly understand this so you can finally stop blaming yourself for the distance between you. A light that suddenly appears and shines with incredible intensity can be overwhelming for someone who has spent their entire life living within the shadows. When brightness becomes too powerful, the natural response is to close your eyes and retreat toward the familiar darkness. That is exactly why this person stepped away. It was not because you lacked value, but because being completely seen felt unfamiliar and overwhelming. Their usual emotional defenses stopped working, leaving them feeling exposed and vulnerable in ways they had never experienced before. Their ego interpreted this openness as a serious threat to the control and protection it had depended upon for so many years. Because they could not fully understand or explain why such emotional depth frightened them, they responded with silence, mixed signals, and vague explanations that left you carrying confusion rather than clarity. As Carl Jung suggested, genuine awareness begins when the hidden parts of ourselves are brought into consciousness. In many ways, your presence became the catalyst that encouraged them to confront parts of themselves they had avoided for an extremely long time. Comment shadow. If you felt they were doing deep inner work, even while the two of you were apart. By creating this physical distance, You unknowingly removed their ability to blame the relationship for everything they were feeling. Eventually, they were left with no choice but to recognize that the emotional conflict had always existed within themselves. The silence became an echo chamber where they had to confront fears of abandonment, feelings of not being enough, and long-standing patterns of self-sabotage that had quietly influenced their life for years. What appeared to be emotional coldness or indifference toward you was actually an exhausting internal struggle to dismantle a false identity that had protected them for such a long time. After experiencing the extraordinary depth of the connection you shared, returning to shallow conversations and emotionally empty relationships was no longer possible. The distance served as a necessary pause, preventing the relationship from becoming unhealthy while they were not yet emotionally prepared. It allowed both of you the opportunity to heal personal wounds without creating lasting damage to one another. Now that the hidden aspects of themselves have started emerging into conscious awareness, the enormous amount of energy they once invested in building emotional walls and pushing people away has been released. That same life force has completely changed direction. Instead of fueling escape, it is now moving toward acceptance, openness, and a willingness to embrace the connection. This person no longer sees the love you offered as something that threatens their independence. Instead, they now recognize it as a doorway leading toward genuine inner freedom. They have come to understand that the real prison was never the relationship. It was the limitations they had created within themselves. The bond you share has become the key that opens a new understanding of life, representing a complete transformation in the way they perceive both themselves and the world around them. Where they once saw danger, they now recognize safety. Where they once felt compelled to walk away, they now feel a quiet but undeniable pull to return to where everything truly began. In the language of the soul, that beginning represents the unique energy that only your connection can create. It is important for you to understand that you did nothing wrong by loving deeply or expressing your feelings honestly. That intensity had a purpose. Without that powerful awakening, this individual might have remained emotionally asleep. You became the powerful storm that swept away years of emotional stagnation. And now that the storm within them has passed, the landscape of their mind is beginning to become clear, revealing a completely different perspective from the one they once carried. The decision we spoke about earlier is now beginning to emerge from this new awareness. It is no longer the frightened inner child or the wounded version of themselves making the choice. Instead, it is the wiser, more mature part of their spirit stepping forward and accepting responsibility. It is someone who has looked directly into their own shadow, accepted what they found there, and chosen to recognize that genuine love holds more strength than fear ever could. Type 1. If you are ready to receive this love and this confirmation, this internal transformation cannot always be witnessed through ordinary eyes. Yet beneath the surface, it is incredibly powerful. When someone stops resisting the direction their life is attempting to take them, an enormous amount of energy is released because you are connected to this person through invisible threads of shared emotions, meaningful experiences, and deep memories. Naturally, you become one of the first people to sense this energetic change. That is why your anxiety may have started to soften. That is why you may sometimes feel their presence even when there are no messages, no phone calls, and no outward signs of communication. The emotional wall that once existed between the two of you has begun to weaken. Just as water held behind a dam suddenly moves forward when the barrier gives way, the emotions this individual has finally acknowledged within themselves are now searching for a path back toward you. But before you can fully receive this renewed emotional flow, you must first recognize how this changing reality is already beginning to reveal itself throughout your everyday life. Now that their hidden emotions have risen to the surface and the resistance they once carried has started to dissolve, The energy that was previously directed toward escaping has completely changed its course. Instead of creating more distance, it is slowly moving toward reconnection, and your own body is often the first place where this subtle transformation is experienced. Now that we have explored how this person's emotional resistance has started to disappear and how their energy is no longer concentrated on escaping, but instead on discovering a path back, it becomes important to understand how this profound transformation can begin appearing through ordinary daily experiences. Because there is something you should remember deeply. Changes that happen on an energetic level rarely occur without producing some kind of response in the person who shares that connection. Your phone may still remain silent. Their social media may show nothing different. There may still be no obvious indication that anything has changed. Yet beneath the surface, the invisible connection linking two deeply connected souls may already be transmitting countless signals at remarkable speed. Even before words are spoken or physical actions become visible, something within you can begin recognizing that the energy between you is no longer what it once was. Long before physical reality reflects the transformation, the unseen bond quietly begins preparing both hearts for what is gradually unfolding.